I'm wiping this needle thoroughly in this blood. And I say to my friends Fauci and Gottlieb and Galpin and Gallo and all the rest of those criminals, all right, that this is for the sake of humanity and no other reason. And this is in the hope that it'll save the lives of millions of individuals who will die because of the greatest lie ever told.
Thank you.
The interesting thing about the germ theory, it was formulated in the 1800s. The two main proponents were Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch. Basically, they said there's one germ for every disease, one microorganism for every disease. And if they couldn't find the microorganism, they said, well, it's too small to see in our microscopes. We'll just call it a virus, which means poison.
If most illnesses really are due to poison, and virus actually means poison, then it's a truthful word. However, that's not how it's described by any medical or scientific textbook.
It's a problematic word.
It's been completely changed in the modern era to refer to some sort of particle containing genetic material that causes illness and is contagious. This simply has never been proven to be the case.
First off, it has to be understood that having a disease, even a quote viral disease, doesn't mean that it's caused by what we call a virus. Even though there is a decades-long culture of studying viruses with Nobel Prize-winning scientists and a whole field of virology and microbiologists, it's possible that they are all wrong. So before watching this video, you should put yourself in the mindset that a huge mistake has been made in the understanding of what a virus actually is and how disease arises in the human body. Actually, the whole consensus mindset on this subject is an inversion of the truth. We have somehow tricked ourselves into believing that nature is out to get us and that disease arises from the outside and in. In reality, the complete opposite is the truth. Neither viruses nor bacteria comes from the outside. They are produced from within. And they are not the cause of disease, they are the result of it. It seems like a simple thing to prove, right? That viruses cause disease. All you would have to do is isolate the supposed virus and expose it to healthy tissue and see what happens. If the cells start dying in the subject, you'll know that the virus is to blame. This is what all of the current top virologists claim to have done in their many, quote, virus isolation studies. Actually, the entire globe is currently bowing down to whatever conclusions these experts come to in their studies. Never before has a scientific field possessed this much global power. These experts seem to insist that viruses are pathogenic enemies and that they spread between people. But did you ever wonder how these scientists even came to this conclusion? How do we know that it's viruses who are causing all of these diseases and not some other thing? In this regard, it might be in our own best interest to understand how they prove the existence of viruses, because it is currently impacting every single one of us, sick or not. So without further ado, let's take a look at the peculiar world of virus isolation. First, we have to get our hands on a tissue culture. A tissue culture is a way to grow cells artificially in a laboratory. We could use many different kinds of tissues for these experiments, but the most common are viro cells, which are the kidney cells from a monkey. In order to make sure that the kidney cells are clean, we will have to add antibiotics into the tissue culture, gentamicin to be specific. These, like all other antibiotics, are toxic to cells, and especially kidney cells. But worry not, we have an antidote for that, and it's called fetal calf serum. Yes, that's exactly what you think it is. Fetal sera from real fetal mammals. Only with this will we be able to slow the death of the cell culture down. Without fetal sera, it would immediately go into decay. Okay, time for a checklist. Monkey kidney cells, antibiotics, fetal calf serum, food for the cell culture to stay alive. Let's just dump in some nutrient poor and genetically modified nutrition. Don't worry about the pesticides in there, they won't harm anything. Okay, so now we have our culture. It might be toxic and starving, but the fetal calf serum seems to have sort of kept it alive. Next up, we have to add the body fluid from a sick person who has an alleged virus. And then we wait. Look, the cells in the cell culture are damaged and dying. I wonder what could be producing this effect. Could it be because we intoxicated them with antibiotics? Or starved them to death with reduced nutrition? No, it must be from a virus that hijacked the cell and made it break itself down into smaller and spreadable viruses. Let's call this virus isolation and make it the golden standard for proving viruses exist. And that is how the existence of viruses is ultimately proved.
Hey man, look at the dead cell fragments I created by starving and poisoning the cells in the culture.
Let's call them viruses and say that they were created by a virus that hijacked the cells.
And we'll call this virus isolation.
Maybe you'll ask yourself, why don't the virus isolators just look at the cell culture by itself and see if the monkey kidney cells die before they put any sample from a sick person in there? Because this would almost certainly overturn the whole virus theory, and that would upset huge commercial interests. The pharmaceutical industry would be crushed, because pharmacy based off of germ theory is a huge portion of their revenue. Luckily, few independent scientists have been able to conduct similar experiments, but without adding the body fluids from a sick person. One of these people is Dr. Stefan Lanke, who showed in his studies how the same cytopathic effects seen in virus isolation studies occur when no alleged virus sample is added to the tissue culture. In other words, what is killing the cells are not dangerous imaginary unicorn viruses. It's the toxic materials added to the cell culture. But what about all the quote virus photos we see? These pictures are literally computer generated images. They are CGI in order to depict what they think or imagine a particular virus looks like. Now when you see actual photographs under the microscope, what you are actually seeing is cell debris, particles of cells that are broken down, damaged, or being used by the body for some different activity. I'm not insisting I have all the answers on this subject, far from it. What I'm trying to say is that the current standards for virus isolation are questionable at best, and under no circumstance should it be regarded as an ultimate truth. These tissue culture experiments are incredibly far removed from the natural world we all inhabit, and they exclude so many different factors.
In a living body, whether it's an animal or a human, there are a myriad of feedback systems that are all working congruously with each other, including a very elaborate communication system with the external environment that's keeping that homeostatic mechanism going the entire time. And if you take a few cells out of a body, put it into an in vitro contrived situation, that has nothing to do with a real body in real life. You're eliminating all these other factors. I'm not saying there's maybe not a time and place for those kinds of studies and that maybe we can't learn something, but no way on earth are you going to be able to make sense out of that and directly translate that into a living body with a consciousness, animal or human. It's really silly.
You may be asking yourself, so if there are no viruses, why do people seem to infect each other, like with the flu? Well, just because we are not infecting each other, it doesn't mean that we are not affecting each other.
For example, when a plant is stressed or under drought conditions, it produces specific compounds, informational molecules, such as polyphenols, in order to transfer that information to the other plants in its group so that it can say, hey guys, I'm feeling this adversity coming. You guys need to activate resilience pathways.
Perhaps humans communicate through some sort of resonance field that for those in need, it is now time to detox. An annual natural cycle of renewal to remove built-up toxins in an imbalanced terrain.
So that might mean illness.
What we sometimes call influenza-like disease. Raising your temperature, you're sweating, you're eliminating, you're basically in a process of trying to clean house. It doesn't feel good, but ultimately it's there to generate an incredible regenerative effect. It's not to say there isn't risk involved in getting sick in this way. Some people are not going to make it. It's usually the elderly with multiple chronic diseases undergoing polypharmacy. Their detoxification pathways are shot. They aren't getting good nutrition. And those individuals often pass on prematurely. People that are generally healthy are not as susceptible to seasonal influenza. They're not going to need that dramatic, heroic detoxification event. But those who do experience it are doing it so that they can actually clean house so they don't die suddenly of thrombosis or start developing cancer.
This leaves one very important and somewhat disturbing question. If not viruses, then what is actually creating epidemics?
To understand epidemics, you really have to step back and look at the big picture. For instance, the Spanish flu epidemic. Coincidentally, at that time, there was the introduction of a widespread electrical grid. When the herd makes an adaptation, it will go through a symptomatic phase, and then it will be followed by a period of adaptation, and then the species no longer portrays those particular symptoms.
So if you're sick, for example, and you've been exposed to the toxicant burden we all are exposed to today, we have non-native EMF blasting us moment to moment. We have biologically incompatible foods. We have the psychogenicity of profound stress and trauma. Our cells are going to be suffering, which then can lead to the production of extracellular vesicles like exosomes that contain information that may be alarming if you're exposed to it, may tell your partner that they need to activate detoxification pathways immediately because the information is being transferred to the herd so that there could be resistance within the community.
The problem is every time the herd has to make an adaptation, it's not quite as healthy because of it. It loses a little bit of its vitality and resilience. We have a greater abundance of vertical carrier waves, and those with them will carry other things into our biology, into our psyche, into our subconscious. For instance, we are being exposed to propaganda and simultaneously getting it from a source that is exposing us to these negative vertical waves. Those messages are going to create a resonance that then permeates on a very deep level of our consciousness. Everywhere you look, we're exposed to genetic modification in our foods, and vaccines are the same thing.
Fundamentally, the vaccine agenda is a war on the ability of cells to clean themselves out. Instead, they're literally injecting children and people with these toxins, preventing the child, the person, from mounting a defense to clean these toxins out of their cells, and you end up with chronically sick people. This has been shown over and over again. You end up with more cancer, more arthritis, more heart disease, more chronic illness. We see it, before 1986 when the vaccine agenda really started, 11% of the children had a chronic illness. 2017, it's 54%.
Some people have said what we're dealing with is spiritual warfare right now. I agree with that, even though I don't like warfare analogies. Sometimes they're apt. But if we are arguing on some level that we must live in fear of one another, is that not an attack on our spiritual essence? Our true origin, Heavenly Father with God? I mean, this to me is so obvious. I'm like, how does anybody not see this? That if they're, of faith, that they can't see that this fear-mongering is not of God, that there's some other agenda happening here. And of course that manifests in a lot of the things that destroy the terrain. Coming from the germ theory, the fear of the germ kind of planted a state of consciousness, if you will, that would limit our, let's say, coming back to the love and the faith and the belief that would have us out of that fear. And that was the point where we had to declare war on nature, on creation itself. Think about it. What this germ theory means is like God created this place and everything's here just to jump up and kill us at any moment. So suddenly now we are righteous in our war on nature. And then we develop what? More and more toxic, powerful chemicals to kill the things that we thought were going to kill us first. It's like this is a mentality of war. Are we to live in a permanent state of war? How does that work? if you understand warfare in terms of the body, that's living in a permanent state of fight or flight. Now, it's good to get away, if a bear's coming at you, get in fight or flight, and everything goes to your movement. But if you live in that state permanently, you don't live a long, healthy life. We are not designed to do that on a permanent basis. And they are programming us to live in a permanent state of fight or flight. You must live in fear. Don't breathe too deeply. Mask, right? Teach your children to fear one another. Teach your children that you, as a parent, are a vector of their demise, potentially, and that they are a vector of your demise. How is this not a demonic thing that we're not calling out every day? We have been taught, unfortunately, to bow down and worship at the feet of those with authority. If they have the white lab coats and the stethoscope, or if they're PhDs, suddenly we're supposed to say they know something we don't know. This is a cult.